I'm sure you've seen this image before. It's The Great Wave by Hokusai. It's perhaps the most recognisable piece of Japanese art, from Japan's most famous artist. But around the same time as making this print, Hokusai was also conjuring up strange and frightening ghosts plucked from Japanese folklore. From the story of Oiwa, a possessed lantern who haunts her treacherous husband, to the Kohada Koheiji, a vengeful corpse that peers over the curtain to watch you sleep. But where did these monsters come from, and why was Hokusai so fixated with ghost stories? All this and more as we step into the ghoulish art of supernatural Japan. Our tale begins in Japan's Edo period, which spanned between the years of 1603 to 1867, a time when the country's rulers restricted contact with the outside world. With such limited foreign influence, art within Japan's borders flourished, particularly a style of wood block printing called ukiyo-e. Images were carved onto a piece of wood, then covered in ink, and then finally pressed onto paper, revealing the image. This method of printing produced some of the most amazing artists and artworks, but arguably the master of ukiyo-e was this man, Katsushika Hokusai. It's believed that Hokusai created 30,000 unique pieces of art, including his famous Hokusai manga, a 13-volume collection of sketches on every topic imaginable. People, animals, plants, mythology, architecture, even self-defense techniques. He also made some stunning landscapes. Can we take a minute to appreciate some of them? By the age of 70, Hokusai was known throughout Japan, but he was yet to have created his most famous work, his 36 views of Mount Fuji. One of them included his masterpiece, Under the Great Wave of Kanagawa. Here, Hokusai depicts a rogue wave as it plunges down onto the boats below. This fearsome and dramatic piece was instantly popular in Japan. In his lifetime, some 5,000 copies were printed, but only a handful of these originals have survived. As he grew into his old age, Hokusai became more and more interested in the supernatural. He spent much of his time making frightening prints of ghosts from folklore, or, as they're referred to in Japan, yokai. Yokai are weird and mysterious beings, eerie apparitions that inhabit supernatural Japan. There's no word in English that accurately conveys the meaning of yokai. In Japanese, the term refers to things that are both strange and beautiful. I can see why. They come in all shapes and sizes, from friendly household spirits to fierce demons. Let me introduce you to some of them now. Up first, there's the Oyajirome with its large bulbous eye on the back of its head, or the Domokomo, a spirit with 2 heads and 2 personalities. What about the fearsome Ushi-Oni, 1 part bull, 1 part crab, and the rest nightmare fuel? But my favourite is the Kamakiri, this cheeky bird goblin that goes around cutting long hair. Now, around the time that Hokusai was active, interest in these supernatural yokai had boomed. Trading ghost stories was a favourite pastime, particularly in the game of Hyakumonogatari, where participants would sit in a candlelit room and take turns telling frightening tales. After each one was shared, a candle would be extinguished until there was no light left in the room. It was there that the yokai would appear. As an aid to tell these stories, woodblock artists were often commissioned to provide illustrations. This included Hokusai, who made a print series called 100 Ghost Stories. Each of his 5 images have their own legend to accompany them, and I want to tell you this one. It's the tale of Oiwa, and it's one of the most popular ghost stories in Japan. Oiwa lived in the city of Edo with her husband, Iemon. Iemon was a samurai, a noble warrior of old, except that there was nothing noble about this samurai, for he was secretly having an affair with their neighbour. One day, Oiwa fell very sick. Each day she would get worse and worse. Seeing an opportunity to finally rid himself of his sickly wife, Iemon gave Oiwa a potion. Believing it to be medicine, Oiwa drank the concoction. However, it was a deadly poison, and soon she was beset by horrific changes. Her hair fell out, and she was driven mad. In the grips of her illness, she fell onto her husband's sword. Her spirit passed into a nearby lantern, and she was condemned to roam the earth as a vengeful spectre. Day and night, she would haunt Iemon for his betrayal, eventually driving him to madness as well. This super depressing story is captured in one single image, and looking closely, it contains some prompts to help the storyteller. Over here we have Oiwa's name, and this symbol on her forehead is the mark of the Buddhist god Yama. the evil lord of death and the underworld. The other ghost stories are equally as disturbing, with many of them being about revenge. This eerie woodblock tells the story of the servant girl Sarashiki, whose spirit emerges out of a well each night in search of an expensive plate she once lost. Hence the snake-like body made out of crockery. We've also got Kohada Koheiji, a former kabuki actor who was murdered and then dumped in a swamp. In this picture, he's pulling apart the mosquito net, having just found his murderers. Of course, Hokusai wasn't the only artist who enjoyed painting yokai. Contemporaries of Hokusai, like Kuniyoshi, made their own versions, like the story of Umebozu, a giant ghostly shadow who appears to sailors in fierce typhoons. But beware, one wrong word and you'll be dragged to the depths of the sea. These illustrations of yokai showcase the bizarre imaginations of woodblock artists. Similar creatures appear in European artworks, like these headless humanoids called blemmies. If you want to learn more about them, consider watching my field guide to medieval monsters. In the years after Hokusai's death, Japan opened its borders to the outside world. Hokusai's exquisite woodblock prints reached a wider audience. The Great Wave in particular. Today it's one of the most widely printed artworks of all time. The introduction of Western art led to other changes. Traditional Japanese manga, pioneered by Hokusai, morphed with American comic books to create the manga we know today. Even in animation, Western styles fused with traditional tastes and practices, as seen in this early experimental cartoon. This evolved into anime, and it's through these mediums we've got to experience all the wonderful yokai that have come out of Japan. A prime example of this is the animation of Studio Ghibli. In films like Spirited Away or Pompoko, both are love letters to Japanese folklore and artists like Hokusai. You might be able to tell by now, but Hokusai is one of my favourite artists, and whilst his woodblock landscapes get most attention, there's something so wonderful about his ghostly prints. There's nothing quite like them, they're so animated and strange. Through his spectral yokai, Hokusai hints at wonders and horrors that lurk behind our everyday lives. Hey, thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this one. Japanese folklore is certainly something I'm going to return to, so stick around for more. If you like strange and disturbing art, then you'll love my video on the nightmarish hellscapes of Hieronymus Bosch. If you like this video and want to see more, why not subscribe? A like and a comment also go a really long way. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.